my motivation for, of course, yeah, it was such an honor to be asked. But once I was asked, my first thought was like, wow, I'm gonna be able to see Sharon Ozzy and thank them face to face.
Bad decisions, bad decisions, bad decisions.
Welcome back to the Bad Decisions podcast, where we lead not with celebrity, but with story. Today's guest is legendary bassist Rudy Sarzo. His playing can be seen and heard with some of the most iconic bands in rock history. Ozzy Osbourne's tribute, Speak of the Devil. He also toured the world alongside Randy Rhoads and Tommy Aldrich. He played on Quiet Riot's Metal Health, the first metal album to hit #1 on Billboard. He played with Whitesnake, Dio, and Blue Oyster Cult. He is the author of the amazing Off the Rails, Aboard the Crazy Train in the Blizzard of Oz, and he performed at Ozzy Osbourne's final farewell concert this past July at Villa Park, just 17 days before Ozzy's passing. At 74, he's still playing bass in Quiet Riot. He's still honoring the legacy of Randy Rhoads, Kevin DuBrow, and Frankie Banali. Rudy Sarzo, welcome to the Bad Decisions podcast.
Great to be here, Scott. By the way, I wish I was still 74. I'm actually 75 officially now.
Oh, well, happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
You're aging like a first growth Bordeaux.
It's always now, so I don't even think about aging. Because it's just like one continues now.
100%.
What time is it? It's now.
True that.
And, we can say that every second or split second. It's the same.
Yeah. So I'd love to start with July 5th, 2025. You were on stage at Villa Park in Birmingham alongside legends like Metallica, Tool, and so many others, all there to kiss the ring, pay tribute, and celebrate Ozzy and Black Sabbath at Back to the Beginning. Ozzy performed while seating on a throne, unable to walk due to his advanced Parkinson's, and 17 days later, he was gone. When you were up there playing that day, did you know you were saying goodbye? Can you walk us through that day?
No, I was there to say thank you. Because, back to the beginning, that was when I heard the name, that it was revealed to me about the name of the event, I thought, how fitting, not only for Ozzy and Black Sabbath, but also for myself. Because playing with Ozzy was the beginning of everything for me. So it was back to the beginning for me also, and that I was just there to face to face be able to say thank you to Ozzy and Sharon because they were both instrumental in my first break. They gave me my first break thanks to Randy Rhoads recommended me because I had played with Randy prior uh, to me playing with him and Ozzy. I played with him in Quiet Riot, so he knew about my skills and my personality, and there were certain boxes that whoever was going to be the new bass player had to check. And he felt that I checked all the boxes, what they were looking for. And it just so happened that they were looking for a bass player in Los Angeles. If it would have been a bass player somewhere else, let's say back in England, I would have not been in the running for that.
Interesting. So leading up to that day, did you guys get time for a full band rehearsal or did everyone just, hit their mark and play?
Everybody, even because I was part of a band a collective that was put together by Tom Morello. He put together two bands. There was Group A and Group B. I was in Group B. And he was so kind to allow me to be the only bass player in that group. I was supposed to play 4 songs, and then they kept adding songs, and he kept sending me a text. Can you play on this one? And every time he sent me one, I say, yeah, sure, send me more. So I wound up playing yeah.
Which songs did you play?
Oh my God. There was a drum off at the very beginning of the set. Travis Barker, who really, it blew me away. I mean, he played amazing, not only during the drum off, but also during the set. and then you have Danny Carey from Tool, and then you have Chad Smith from Red Hot Chili Peppers, and they had a drummer. So we did Symptom of the Universe, an arrangement that Tom Morello came up. So like in between the sections, it would be drum fills, drum off. And then we started the actual set with KK Downing and Billy Corgan joining us
Oh, so cool.
for a Judas Priest song, Breaking the Law. And then we
Yeah.
followed that with uh, Snowblind. Yeah, yeah. And then after that, we had Tobias from Ghost. We had Sammy Hager. I just don't want to forget anybody. As far as the vocalist goes, and I'm thinking about the vocalist. We had Steven Tyler, and
Right.
the other three drummers kept changing, switching between songs. And we had Adam Jones on guitar from Tool in some of the songs. He grew up with Tom Morello playing together, so it was like amazing to have like one, a guitar player from Rage Against the Machine and another one from Tool. Such
It's,
alternative,
it's
great music.
it's
Growing up
so
together.
amazing.
That was an experience. Uh, Let me see who else. Oh my God, guitar player. Oh yeah, Bernard Reed from Living Color.
Living Color,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah,
Vernon.
yeah. Let's see, Adam Watts, a great producer. He's been producing like all the top records.
Oh
He just
yeah.
did the new Rolling Stones record. You know,
Yeah.
and and then we had guests like Ronnie Wood coming in. You know,
What a
uh,
day. What a day.
yeah, yeah. It was incredible. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, what was the general backstage vibe? I mean, you're there with like the who's who of rock and roll, including Tony and Geezer and Bill. Like, was
Yeah.
everyone just was it just a love fest?
Well, yes, it was absolutely love. As I mean, like I told you, my motivation for, of course, yeah, it was such an honor to be asked. But once I was asked, my first thought was like, wow, I'm gonna be able to see Sharon and Ozzy and thank them face to face because they used to live here in the area, around Malibu
Yeah.
and then in Calabasas, and so I would see them frequently, bump into them.
Yeah.
And after they moved away, I didn't get to see them anymore. And then Ozzy was going through his physical situation, therapy and trying to, you know, because for a while they just did not know what was going on with him, until it was
Yeah.
diagnosed, Parkinson's, And because it all started going downhill after he had that accident on that,
The
what is it?
the fall.
Yeah, the dirt bike when yeah, that, and his estate out there. He was what do you call those mini bikes?
Like quads.
Yeah, one of
Yeah.
those. Yeah, and it just tipped over, and he was injured from that. So that was kind of like the beginning of his health issues. Uh, so yeah, the feel was we did a photo session on. We had two rehearsals. We had one rehearsal day, and then we had a photo shoot in between the rehearsal, and everybody gathered, and there was like different sets, compositions of different musicians all gathered around Ozzy, who was sitting on a throne, and I got to spend a little bit of time talking with him during that. But Sharon was the one that was the most accessible because Ozzy had to be rehearsing with two bands, his own solo
Sure.
group and Black Sabbath.
Right.
And under his condition, that was really draining his energy, you know.
I'm
So
sure.
yeah, so the opportunity of me being in the same room with Ozzy, I just took that. This is the moment I'm gonna, you know, say what I need to say, give my thanks and gratitude. You know.
It's beautiful. So looking back on everything with the benefit of hindsight, from the first day you joined that band in '81 to you both grieving Randy, to seeing him seated on that throne and unable to walk, but still commanding 40,000 people with all he's got. What did Ozzy and Sharon teach you about resilience, about refusing to quit even when your body betrays you?
That's a great question. I I I learned that back in 1982, right after Randy died in the crash, and we it was decided that to keep Ozzy occupied, uh, just to continue. You know, it was we knew it was never going to be the same again, but we also knew that if Ozzy would have gone home, he would have drank himself to death easily.
Yeah.
Uh, so it was a matter of let's keep Ozzy busy, let's keep him going, and we did. But that meant that there was no time to mourn, really, give it the proper mourning period about we just had witnessed. It wasn't just that we heard that Randy passed. No, we experienced it. We were there.
You were in the bus, right?
Yes, I was. Yeah. And so we experienced all the trauma, and then we had to we it took me 20 years to be able to process it and get closure from it. Uh, I'm still, I haven't returned to the person that I was before the crash happened, but at least I've been able to learn how to live with it. And so that's when I learned what you were asking me about resilience. You know, one of the things also, it took me a while to really understand that it is the responsibility of those left behind to celebrate the legacy and the memory of those that we make create our music with. Because if we don't, uh, it's I mean, everybody celebrates in their own way, but nobody
Sure.
celebrates like the people who were actually part of the creative process, you know, whether
Yeah.
it's a performance or a recording, you know.
Yeah, I mean, Randy is a true rock myth. I mean, there's so little video on him, and we've all seen it 1,000 times. And I want to hear you talk about him a little bit more. But Ozzy has commented on him ad infinitum that he was amazing and that he was never in it to be a rock star, and that he had debated going back to college and studying classical guitar, and that he was really, really a different breed of cat. Can you tell me a little bit about Randy, what he was like as a soul?
Yeah, yeah, to me, Randy was never a myth because he was my reality.
Right.
I was experiencing him, and he was mentoring me in his own quiet way because I was watching. Randy was the first musician that I played with who had an academic background in music. All the other guys that I have played with prior to Randy were just like me. We started out, we picked it up as we went along, somehow, some way. But Randy was born into a musical family. Mom and dad, music professors. They built a music school called Musonia, which is in North Hollywood, still there. And Randy got a proper music education. That's the incredible advantage. Uh, because you learn composition, of course, theory, harmony, all of the above, sight reading. So Randy had that. And meanwhile, when I was playing with him in Quiet Riot, he was overqualified as a guitar player to play the music that was basically uh, aimed towards teenage angst.
Yeah.
That was it. Teenage angst. He was a teenager himself, so he's got to write, play music and deliver what the kids can relate to. You know, but he started out on playing classical guitar. That's how he started. Then he picked up the electric so he could be in a rock band and go to
Yeah,
parties and play at parties and impress the girls. You know.
I remember my first time hearing you guys together, and it was a cassette tape in a friend's car, and listening to Crazy Train and Crowley, and I'm like, is it me or do I hear Bach in this Crowley solo? Like he was really the first neoclassical guy that I had ever processed, and I was just like, this, I don't know, this sounds so
Mm,
big. And it was really I
yeah.
was always into rock and roll, but that was really my first foray into loving heavy metal.
Yeah, that's really an interesting observation because I mean, Randy, myself, and a lot of musicians that I grew up with, we were always influenced by progressive rock. Whether it's Yes, King Crimson, or Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Jethro Tull. There was always a thread of classical music, especially in Yes. You know, uh,
Yeah.
and
Chris
so
Squire.
that wasn't, yeah, yeah, I mean, yeah, Steve Howe and all that, yeah, John
Yeah.
Anderson,
My
and
favorite. Yeah.
Wakeman, Rick Wakeman,
Yeah.
who his son Adam, he got to play with us at the Back
Oh,
to the Beginning. Yeah,
oh, I didn't know
yeah,
that. Nobody
yeah,
ever
yeah,
looked
oh yeah,
cooler in a cape. No one ever looked cooler in a cape than Rick Wakeman.
yeah, absolutely. And
So let's
so
go ahead.
yeah, yeah. So no, I just need to encapsulate the whole experience about Randy and classical music. So I when I joined Choir Riot, within a few months, I joined the band in '78, and a few months later, I was teaching at his mom's school, and I would hear Randy in between lessons, his lessons, pick up the acoustic guitar and play classical pieces. So, you know, a couple of days after hearing this over and over, I go to him and say, I didn't know you could play like that. And he says, yeah, that's my first instrument, playing classical music. But, there's no place for that in Quiet Riot. He would incorporate some of it during his guitar solo, when we were playing locally, but still playing the electric guitar. So it wasn't necessarily a classical, but it was kind of like electric classical. And it wasn't until, when he left the band in '79, of course, he went to England, started recording there with Ozzy and Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake. So during a break, he brings a acetate of the record, The Blizzard of
Okay.
Oz,
Uh
and
huh.
and he puts it on, in the place that I was staying at, and I'm listening to it, and I look at him and I go, "What happened?" And he says, "What?" And I go, "Well, you gonna leap some bounds from what we were doing in Quiet Riot." And he goes, "Oh yeah, you know what? When I got together with Ozzy, he asked me, I asked him." Randy said, "I asked him what does he want me to write?" And Ozzy said, "Just be yourself." So that he was
Nice.
given the opportunity to really dig in into who he really was as a musician. He was free, completely free to play what. I mean, there was so much trust from Ozzy about Randy. He really trusted Randy. Ozzy had to fight with the record company to include the song "D" on the album Blizzard of Oz. Because it was very important for Ozzy to let Randy be himself as a creator, as a musician. That's what he was there for. He really trusted him.
It's a beautiful story. So let's jump into Cuba if we could. You left Cuba, I read, at age 10 in 1961. You were leaving behind a world where rock music was banned under Castro. Can you take me back to the moment where you first heard American rock and roll in Florida, and what did freedom sound like to you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. But I actually heard rock and roll in Cuba
Oh, you did? Okay.
pre-revolution. Yeah,
Okay.
revolution came in '59. You
Right.
know, and we had rock. We had Elvis. We played on the radio. Sometimes a lot of these performers, except for Elvis, they would come and perform in Havana. Which was just a short flight from
Miami.
Miami Beach. A
Yeah.
lot of them would perform Miami Beach and then just go down to Havana and then continue touring. or you could take a ferry from the from Key West. And and also we had our own rock in Espanol musicians who were rock musicians, young, but they would sing in Spanish. So we had that scene also. It wasn't until when Castro came in that anything having to do with American music was canceled, basically.
Yeah.
No more on the radio, no more on TV, and even instruments, the saxophone was prohibited to be performed because it was considered an American instrument, you know. And if you were going to play jazz, which is an American form of music,
Construct. Yeah.
genre, you will have to add Latin percussion to it. So you have to like make it, more like Cuban music rather than American jazz. So that's when musicians could actually play jazz and explore jazz harmonies and all of that, but it had to have a Latin feel to it.
Got you. Have you been back to Cuba since you left?
No, I checked this morning. It still is a communist dictatorship. I check every morning just to see if things have changed. So
True. Well, a lot of things happening in the world. Let's see what happens. Um,
yeah, you know what? I've had my hopes before, and it never materialized, obviously. So I'm just very cautious about getting my hopes up.
yeah. So you've mentioned that you and your brother Robert struggled financially when you first came to the States, and you lived in New Jersey doing odd jobs. At what point did music become more than something you loved? When did it become your path to belonging in a new country?
Uh, well, my parents are the ones who had the major struggle. My struggle was adaptation, adapting to a new culture, a new language, a new social standard. We were basically, my dad had a regular job. We were middle class in Cuba. Now we are political refugees, not immigrants, but refugees. From my own
Explain the
experience as
distinction, if you would.
oh sure, if you're an immigrant, you're just migrating, but you can return to the country of origin and still probably keep whatever you had. When we left Cuba, we surrendered everything, nothing. We could not even give it to our relatives. You know, like here, take this sofa, put it in your apartment, in your house. No, it was like now everything that you left behind, it's it's property of the Communist Party,
Stayed.
and they can do whatever they want. There was no turning back. It's not even like if your house is on fire, you have insurance, you can rebuild it. No, you're not going back. And if you do go back, you go to jail. That's the only housing you're gonna get. You
Right.
know. So that to me it's a very clear distinction. When you're a refugee, you're running away from a situation that there's no going back to. Your life will, even if you go back to your point of origin, your life will never be the same again. You know. So, but if you're an immigrant, yeah, I know people who come from different countries and they travel back to wherever they came from all the time to visit their families or to do whatever vacation. You know, yeah.
I read that Ozzy referred to you as Rudy from Cuba, and that mattered to you, and it meant a lot. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it meant acceptance. That they were not trying to hide the fact that I was what even Cubans within my circle of friends or the people in the music industry, the other musicians, they only consider themselves good enough to be Latin or Cuban musicians, not to play outside of that. very few did that. And the only way that we could do it was to leave Miami at the time. Now, this is a 19 late 60s consciousness, very different from what it is today. I don't think anybody even thinks about it anymore. You know, we've come to acknowledge the fact that no matter where you're from, you can always bring something very positive and needed sometimes, something an extra essence or an extra frequency or vibration, energy, positive one to whatever situation, whether you're in the arts or any other form of humanity, you know. And so that pretty much came from my own culture. Like you were supposed to follow in the footsteps of my father. And I said, well, you know, I'm in a new country. Yes, if I would have stayed in Cuba, that would be a possibility. But my dad did not wind up doing exactly what he was doing in Cuba because he was used to work in a magazine, La Revista Bohemia, which was like the major magazine in Cuba. And
Hmm.
he used to be a technician, run all the machines. And once he got to the United States, one of the jobs that description for that was that you had to be able to read, proofread what you're printing, and not being educated in English, that was not possible. So my dad had to take any jobs that were available just to make ends meet.
Just thinking back, there was a moment where I was seeing you guys in the mid '80s, and it was either at a Dio or a Whitesnake show. But I had this friend that I went to every concert with, and I remember elbowing him, and I said, "There's that guy again. What's his name?" And he goes, "Rudy Sarzo." I'm like, "Is he like the Leland Sklar of metal? He seems to play with everyone." He goes, "Yeah, he kind of is actually." Because I just kept seeing you. I saw you with Ozzy, I saw you with Dio, I saw you with
Yeah,
Whitesnake, and I was like, "Is there a band this guy is
yeah.
not in?"
Yeah,
Um,
well, that's quite a
the
compliment because I'm buds with Leyland, and I love him, and he's such an inspiration, and what an incredible musician. To be compared to him in the middle, that's that's quite a that's quite a compliment.
I mean, to me, you guys are like my fixture of so many other players too. But you guys, it's like would I would see Leland. I saw him play with Don Henley, and I saw him play with Genesis, and what I'm picking up from all the research I've done over the course of my life is, yeah, you're a great player, you're a great performer, but obviously you're reliable, you're sober and solid, and you're someone that people like to have around. So I think that's, I don't know, in my business of photography, I would always choose the person who I want to spend 12 hours with over the person who might be difficult and the most talented. What's your take on that?
Yeah, you just answered the first question you asked me, which was how did I get basically talking about me joining Ozzy. It's I checked all those boxes
Right, and you're
As
a
far
good
as Randy knew.
right. So let's jump into Quiet Riot, which I think is still the tallest stage I've ever seen. August 1977, you're broke, you're in LA, you were turned away from a sold out Van Halen show at the Whiskey A Go Go, where I was just for New Year's Eve, um, and went to go see Quiet Riot at Starwood instead. Looking back, do you believe in fate? Do you think that that chance encounter with Kevin DuBrow changed everything for you?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And and if you want to go few years before that, that was 5 years prior to that. 5 years, November 17, I went to see David Bowie perform at a place called Pirates World in Dania, Florida,
Mm-hmm.
in between Fort Lauderdale and Miami. So that was kind
Yeah.
of like our to-go place with a lot of bands played there. You know, Pirates World was an amusement park, you know, but it had a
Mm-hmm.
stage next to it, you know.
Okay.
And so there was an opening band that was just added on unbeknownst to me. Oh, well, I just went there to see Bowie. I didn't care about the opening band, but they were just
Sure.
added on, and the name of the band was called Ginger, and they were happened to be a local band. And I walk in and the band starts playing, and I'm going like, wow, these guys are really good. And the drummer, he's just fantastic. He's just amazing. And the more they played, the more I was impressed. And and then Bowie comes on, and they do. That was the only American tour for the Spiders from Mars, 1972. And so, I leave the show, thinking about, wow, what a great night of music, Bowie, Spiders from Mars, and the opening band, Ginger, especially the drummer. So the next day is my birthday. This is how I know all the dates, November 18th. So I go to the place in Fort Lauderdale where all the musicians, American musicians, will gather. It wasn't really part of the Cuban scene in Miami. It was more Fort Lauderdale, which is a different county also. It was called the Flying Machine.
Okay.
And I'm there hanging out with some other musicians. And somebody goes, hey, that's one of the guys that opened up for Bowie last night. And I look over and I see the guy and I just walk over to him and introduce myself and starts raving about the band and especially the drummer. So he's like smiling and just looking at me. And then I finish my what I had to tell him, and he puts out his hand and says, "Hi, I'm Frankie. I'm the drummer." I thought he was the bass player. I was sitting all the way in the back, so I
Right.
really can see him very well. And we started playing right after that. We struck a friendship and a partnership, and I learned so much from him because he wasn't part of the Cuban scene, the Cuban rock scene. He was part of the American rock scene, meaning he was playing with all American musicians
Hmm.
who naturally, because we all like, and I can tell you from experience, if you were Cuban growing up in the 50s and 60s, around the house, you were going to be listening to a lot of music that was not rock on right on the beat bass, like da 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 da, like that, right?
Yeah.
Starting with Little Richard, Chuck Berry's keyboard player, and then later on the Beatles. Everything is on the beat, da 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 da,
Yeah.
right? Okay, that's what I call metronomic. You can
Yeah.
follow it's right on the grid. Whereas the music that we grew up with is very, for example, a traditional Cuban band does not have a drummer. It has a percussion section.
Right.
You have timbales and congas and everything else, percussion. So there's
Sure.
not a time. The timekeeper will be considered the guy with the clave. That will be the timekeeper. Now everybody else is playing around the guy with the clave. He's keeping it like a metronome. It might have like a little
Sure.
beat going on, but everybody's behind it, forward. It's very tribal. This whole thing comes from tribes gathering in a drum circle. Nobody's playing at the same time. Everybody's expressing themselves, you know.
What?
And
That's an
that,
interesting way to learn. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And even back, you go to my childhood in Cuba, I used to go to sleep. Used to live in Havana, and right outside my window, there would be, we lived there would be a street, and cars were parked. And back in the day, in the 50s, all cars were made out of metal. So every part of the car is metal, not like it is today. There's a lot of plastic. So
Yeah.
all you had to do is grab a coin, a penny, whatever, a nickel, and go to a car and start beating on it. You'll get a sound. So me growing up, my social network, which I was not a part of, but I would go to sleep listening to, were the kids in the neighborhood gathering around a car, beating on it like a drum circle, and that's how I would go to sleep. So you start really internalizing this rhythm that is not necessarily metronomic like the American rock is or blues bass. You have two things that came from Africa to our to our world. You have the blues bass, which is
Hmm.
when the Africans were their traditional percussion instruments were taken away from them. They had to like either sing or play they brought the banjo. The originally the banjo, a form of the banjo, is an African instrument. That's where it comes from. Of course,
Interesting.
you have
I always
yeah.
thought it was the only stringed, uniquely American instrument. I did not know it
Oh
had a
no,
predecessor.
it's a derivative of an African instrument. Yeah, but of course you have like Northern Africa. You have the Gypsies uh, in that area playing the guitar. The reason why uh, why there is flamenco music in Spain is because uh, southern Spain was actually invaded by the northern Africans. Where I think it was like maybe a century. If you ever watched the movie El Cid,
Uh huh.
I watched that as a kid. And you learn about that. I mean, if you look at the architecture in Spain, southern Spain, Granada, and all of that, you have all of the Moorish influence in the architecture and in the culture, in the dancing, in the music, the way it's sung, everything. That's all Moorish. So it still comes from Africa,
Oh,
right? So
interesting.
okay, so once that came into the new world, this part of the hemisphere, uh, the Africans in Cuba were allowed to play their percussion instrument. That's why you have the Afro-Cuban rhythms.
Sure.
Whereas in the United States, except for Louisiana, which was French at the time, they were not allowed to play percussion, So that's where the certain rhythms come, which are differentiate from the Afro-Cuban Caribbean rhythms compared to the rhythms in the United States, with the exception of course, New Orleans, Louisiana.
It's so interesting. So having not a two-part question. So having not played with drummers, which is usually that's the team, is the rhythm section is bass and drums. One,
Yes,
do you prefer to play with a click track or without because it wasn't so foundational for you? And then the second part is
yeah,
I'm always curious about bassists because it's a funny instrument to choose in that you can't sit around and play a song at a campfire. I always find it interesting why people choose bass. And I grew up as a big fan of James Jamerson and Geezer
mhm.
and Paul McCartney and Brian Wilson. What made you choose bass?
The bass was chosen for me. Uh, yeah, I just, I want to answer that question, but also, well, I mean, I think we moved on from the prior question. Okay, why?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm in Miami. My family had just returned from our relocation program in New Jersey. We were relocated to New Jersey, and my family decided to go back to Miami, and so we did. And I already had, this is 1966. I already had an acoustic guitar. Did not know how to play it, but I had one, and I could
Hmm.
by ear, play with it. It was completely out of tune, but by ear I could like, play some certain things. And it was mostly uh, riffs rather than chords. Because to
Right.
play chords, somebody had to teach you that.
Sure.
It's more, it's something that you cannot really pick out because first of all, the tuning might be off, and even if you play the correct chord position, it sound wrong. And so I go down uh, to the band that was playing in their garage on the block that I moved to. I could not go across the street. I had to stick with the block that I lived. That was the rule. So I go in, introduce myself. I got my acoustic guitar with me, and
Uh-huh.
and they go, "Oh no, we have too many guitar players." I mean, their idea of a guitar player was if you own an acoustic guitar, you were, a rock musician, I guess. And they go, if you want to play, be in the band. If you want to be in the band, you got to play bass. And I go, what is that? They say, well, it's like playing a guitar solo during the whole song. And I thought that's perfect because I didn't know
It's
any chords, anyways.
it's
So it
interesting
was
because it's
more,
been a
yeah,
through line. Yeah. No, I was saying it's been a
yeah,
through line in my life where you will point at the bass player and say, "You know about music, Scott. What does that guy do? I can't hear it." And I'm like, maybe you can't hear
mm,
it, but you can feel it. It's the part that's making you shake your ass right now. It's like it's
yeah,
this framework. And I mean, certain songs,
yeah, yeah,
it's dominant, like Pink Floyd's Money, like so many other songs, but so many things, it's just you have from your knees to the floor is all you.
yeah, yeah. Uh, Through the years, and it actually coincided with me uh, becoming a recording artist because I grew up in an era where the bass was very predominant in the mixes. You could hear the bass clearly. And I was just listening to a lot of Bowie today at the gym, and there's a lot of clarity about the bass. And it has to do with the artist making sure that the mixer puts up certain instruments in the mix. But then again, if you're talking about Bowie, unless it's like certain songs where he's going alternative, the traditional Bowie song is not very saturated in the guitars.
No,
I mean, to
no,
the
it's
point
spare.
like yeah, like it is nowadays. It's more of a rock guitar sound than a drop C tuning, metal song. Even though, when he collaborated with other artists, young artists, uh, there will be like when let's say him and Trent Reznor collaborating, that was the sound that was going towards more of a modern sound with Bowie. So, but that's not what we think of when we think of David Bowie. We think more about his Let's Dance, or which is called Alomar, more of a Latin feel to the music. Uh, or
Nile,
of course,
yeah.
Mick Ronson. Yeah, Mick Ronson with the Spiders from Mars. That
That
is
was
kind
the
of like
band.
the classic, yeah, the classic David Bowie. Yeah.
It's funny. I was talking to Steve Jones one time about when he was starting the Sex Pistols. They didn't have any money and they didn't have any gear, and they touched on it on that TV show that was made about him. But he's like, I needed a microphone, so I went to the Hammersmith Odeon and I stole Bowie's microphone after sound check, and I stole Mick Ronson's white Les Paul, which became the famous Sex Pistols Les Paul. And I'm like, weren't you nervous about playing it? He goes, no, I was young and stupid. I just put those girly stickers on the guitar and automatically. And I go, but where'd you get your first amp? He goes, oh, I went back the following week and I stole Bob Marley's Fender Deluxe from the Hammersmith Odeon. Funny story.
It's a funny story. It's yeah, yeah, yeah. I saw the series, and I was very impressed with him, but also with Chrissy Hine, her
I
part in the
know.
story. Yeah, I did not know. I got educated. Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Because I've known him for years, but I never got around to reading the book for whatever reason, and I just heard his stories firsthand. And it's funny. Over the summer, I walked into a restaurant and I was wearing a kilt just to have fun, kilt and the motorcycle boots, and Brian Grazer stops me in Malibu, and he goes, "You're giving me a Malcolm McLaren vibe." Because I got red hair and I'm wearing the kilt. And I go, oh, that's cool. I'll take it. He goes, do you even know who Malcolm McLaren is? I was like, yes, dude, I do. He goes, who is he? And I'm like, Vivian Westwood's partner, manager of the Sex Pistols. He's like, okay, okay, you know. But it's amazing, that band,
Yeah,
because they made one record, really, defined a genre and still living quite well.
yeah. I mean, sometimes that's all you need to do. Just make that statement, open that door. let
Yeah.
everybody follow through. Yeah.
Yeah, so Tommy Aldridge, who I'm a massive fan of, described playing with you and Randy as a supernatural experience. You played with Randy more than anyone. Did he elevate everyone, or was it just great chemistry?
After having conversation with Tommy, yeah, Randy was a big part of Tommy's decision to play with Ozzy. I think if a lesser guitar player would have been involved, which is it's all hypothetical because
Sure.
Ozzy had an opportunity to pick lesser guitar players, and he did not. Once he heard Randy, he knew that was it. That was the one. You know, uh, because Ozzy was ready to go back to England before he heard Randy. And I don't know if you know the story, but Dana Strum, the bass player from Slaughter, kept insisting to Ozzy, "You got to hear this guy." And Randy kept turning Dana down, saying, "I'm not interested." And it's basically Randy agreed with Dana to go and play for Ozzy to audition, just to stop Dana from calling him.
Why wasn't he
So,
interested? Do you know?
well, Randy had a very simple life. He was living at home. He was busy teaching. He was happy with his band, Quiet Riot. He was not happy with the music industry,
Sure.
but he wanted to make it on his own terms, which he did. Which he did. I mean, if Randy would have stayed in LA and just go in the same direction as Quiet Riot was going to, you would have never gotten the influence that Randy
Sure.
was able to share with everybody as far as being a neoclassical guitar player, because they would have still been going down that poppy, it's glam rock direction, you know.
Sure.
But some things came into play. I mean, and his mom was a major role in him deciding to actually go on the road with Ozzy. I mean, or go on the road meaning leave LA to go to England. And he had never been out of the United States before. He, he used to travel by train. He didn't like planes. So here you have a decision that was like his mom told him, listen, if you don't take this opportunity, you may never make it. Because at the time, the type of musicians that we were naturally, uh, just glam rock from the Sunset Strip, influenced by bands like Bowie and Queen and all of that, Mother Hoople, and it had become passe. Record companies
Yeah.
were just interested in signing bands that were new wave and punk, because that's what was
Yep.
happening at the time.
Right.
So it took Randy to leave LA to go to England, start working with Ozzy, get together with Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake, made those two records. Those two records were recorded before me and Tommy joined the band,
Right.
you know. So they did them back to back. I think there was like a small tour in between the Blizzard and then the recording of Diary of a Madman, and then they just were right back in the studio
Right.
to record that record, you know. And then they came to the United States, and that's when they got Tommy in the band, and then they got me in the band. Uh, it moves really fast. So I don't think that there was a whole lot of time for Randy to sit around and contemplate what is going on with my life, as far as my
Right.
career goes. It was just like, okay, Randy, we need songs for this new record. Okay, I got these songs here,
Amazing.
and
So,
it was just pour right out. Yeah.
So, a bit of an esoteric question. One through line I've noticed, a lot of legends have said that they had no idea where their work came from, and many, including Bob Dylan, credited the divine. I've always believed that certain artists are vessels for the divine. Would you agree?
Uh, God's greatest gift to humanity, in my opinion, is creativity, because that's what makes us godlike. It's even in the Bible. You are gods with a little g, not the big one, but the little g, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And just as the creator, God, I'm old fashioned, I call it God, but
same.
there's two things, two elements. We're talking about waves and particles. Everything starts with a wave. It's a thought, it's a word, it's a resonance, it's a sound, it's a wave, a color. Everything has wave. Any of that. You look around the room. If you look around the furniture, before that furniture showed up, somebody thought about it, designed it, drew it, and then comes the action. You're gonna turn this into a particle. You're gonna get material things and put it together. And everything in life is like that, especially
It's
in
true.
art. Whether it's music, it has to come from one source. And we have an a there's no limit to our resources as far as being connected to the God, to the quantum field, which is what I'm talking about. The quantum field where everything comes from, that turns it into material and exists. Uh, that, in my opinion, from what I've studied, that's where God is. It's the quantum field. It's that energy, that thought, that consciousness that we'll share. If you take a look at the at any rock concert, any music, people gather to feel things that they cannot see. Music,
Pure
they're there for
tribalism.
the music.
Tribalism.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If you take
But also,
away, if you take away the sound, those sound waves that come through those big speakers, you don't have a rock concert anymore. You have a museum, like an exhibition, pictures. You got pictures. Pictures have their own energy. That's how we see colors as energy, you know. And but that's not a rock concert. A rock concert. I
no.
mean, I'm old enough that I saw all the great bands play without any of the production that is standard today. All those big screens and all the special effects that are going on, the lights,
Pyro,
all of that.
lasers. Yeah.
Yeah, all of that. And they are the most memorable shows that I've experienced in my whole life. Watching Led Zeppelin play, just four guys on stage, watching The Who play, watching Queen play, minimal. The music is what carried the whole thing to me,
It's it
and that's what
and the
made it unforgettable.
interconnectedness and the connection between audience and band and the whole thing. I mean, to me, in life, the concert to me has always been omnipotent. And there was a period in my life where I would literally go see anyone in concert, even if I didn't think I liked them. I remember I saw Luciano Pavarotti and Judas Priest and Megadeth in the same week. And then I'd go see Michael
Mm,
Jackson a week later. I just love concerts, and there's a real pure human tribal thing that happens at a concert that I don't think you can experience anywhere else.
absolutely. And if you, let's say, we go back talking about the quantum field, which
Yep.
as humans we have our own sphere of energy that comes out of our center, out of our being. Spreads about 6 feet, depending on how healthy you are and what kind of mood you're in and all that. But the average human being has about 6 foot reach outside of your body, as far as the energy goes. And imagine going to, even if you're sitting down at a show, but I grew up with general admission. Everybody was standing around together, almost shoulder to shoulder.
Sure.
Imagine the crossfade of energy, but tuned to the same consciousness. There's a the reason why people go to a show because is you have all these humans sharing a collective consciousness, gathering in one spot to
And a
feel,
collective love. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, just to feel that energy without, and nobody likes to do it alone. If you compare, let's say sound check, there could be like a guest, a friend of mine coming to see the show, and he's standing in front of, watching us doing sound check. It's a whole different experience as when the whole place is full and you're getting this massive amount of collective energy, bouncing, going back and forth. It's a wave. It's a wave. You got the music coming off the stage and then coming right back at you. And
It's
that's what
incredible.
makes it feel, yeah, it is incredible. Yeah, yeah.
We just lost the late great Bob Weir, and the Grateful Dead was a band that I saw more than anyone else. I saw them
Mm.
137 times, and I only count the Jerry Garcia shows. I saw plenty of them after that too. But so many people like, I don't understand what people like about the Dead, and I'm like, you had to be there. It doesn't translate in a bootleg. It doesn't translate on albums. It was a pure tribal thing where you could go anywhere in the world and be with your family, be with your own people. Um,
That's
thank you
wonderful.
for
Yeah.
thank you for reconfirming so many things that I've always felt about energy. Does it ever get old to you? Is it still thrilling to get on a stage in an arena or a stadium?
A stadium for me is home. I feel more comfortable. Uh, and and there's a reason why. When I was a baby, a toddler,
Yeah.
living in Havana, we lived close to beaches, the beach. And so my parents, this is like old fashioned uh therapeutic, that you want to take a baby and give him fresh air and the beach and, and everything that comes with the sun and all of that, right? So,
Yeah.
a few times a week they would just, grab some beach blankets and we'll go to the beach and they put me right in the sand. And I would just stare at the water, at the water. I mean, I would just be basically hypnotized by the waves coming in and out. And when I first played my first stadium, that was in July 4th, 1981, with Ozzy, I got it. This is like, wow, it's a sea of people. This is just like, I reconnected with that child.
Does
And
anything
ever
does
since,
anything
yeah.
replace that feeling? Yeah, a lot of people have told me that when they retire from playing, which you definitely have not, and no sign of it, that nothing replaces that energy of the live performance, and that just life feels dull afterward.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and we have to be careful not to try to uh, replace that same emotion because basically it's a powerful emotion. It's not not that you feel powerful over everybody else, but it's a collective power that you're a part of. You're playing with other musicians. There's a powerful system carrying out the notes that you're playing. What you're creating in the moment. There's a lot of
A-
power and passion
Alchemy, yeah,
involved in it.
yeah.
Yeah, which is, and then to look at the faces and their reactions immediately, uh, it's the highest of all. To me, I mean, it's as high as making love. It is pure love, you know, to be able to do that. And and what happens to certain musicians, and including myself, before I became aware of it, uh, if I would be away from on a break from that, there would be certain negative, powerful feelings that I would gravitate towards because it will give me a sense of power, like anger. And not until I realized that as I can be addicted to performing. It doesn't have to be a stadium, it could be an arena, it could even be a theater. But that power that you get from a performance, if you're missing it, do not by do not substitute it with anything negative, like anger or any addiction that you might have. I've seen a lot of musicians that, on tour from other bands and, situations that I've been in that would immediately substitute it with drug addiction, alcohol, even sex addiction. You know, you cannot replace love with a negative energy. You cannot. It's impossible. You know.
So
So
what's your
yeah,
life like outside of music? Like, what do you know, what enriches you? What enlightens you? What are you into?
creating, making music, playing, learning.
Hmm.
I'm educating. I'm getting an education in other forms of music that I grew up with, uh, like Latin jazz.
Hmm.
And because they're even though yeah, I'm gonna be working in some recordings that are Latin jazz influence, so I can explore what I know, what I've learned musically, just to satisfy my creative juices. Uh,
Cool.
but I mm, I spend most of my time, I'm with my wife. My little dog, and I my goal is to be as peaceful because you cannot have love in your heart without peace. You have to be at peace with your environment, with your family, with everything in your life, and and that can be just as powerful as being on stage. The power of love in your life.
Harmony, yeah.
Yes.
So I want a lot of people, a lot of my listeners to read your book. So can we get into the journal that you kept, the chaos of life with Ozzy, the drinking, the madness, Don Arden chasing Ozzy with a weapon, all of it. What made you sit down and document everything? Did you have a sense
Yeah.
at the time that these moments were worth preserving?
I never witnessed any altercation between Ozzy and Don Arden. Uh,
Okay.
if anything happened, I was not around. I did not witness it, and I wasn't even aware of the
Okay,
possibility
sorry.
that
The
that
internet
happened.
is full of
Yeah.
BS. It happens. Sorry, but in
Oh
your
yeah.
own
Well,
words.
which is the reason why I wrote the book, just to
Yeah.
clarify. And it's up to the reader to either accept it or if you're looking for dirt, you're not gonna find it in my book because that's not what I experienced.
Why do you
You
think
know.
Sharon had a problem with it at the time? I mean, you guys worked it all out and everyone was
Oh,
fine in the end.
because she hadn't read it.
Oh, really? That's it?
Yeah, yeah,
That's okay. I've done
yeah,
a lot of research. I never saw that. It's such a simple answer.
yeah.
So, you- so
Because
you, so you-
the, the, it's kind of like watching the news. When you sit there to watch the news, they give you all the negativity, and then there might be at the very end some, and this little girl gets a pony for her birthday, and that good news. But the bulk of it is it's all negative.
yeah. What's the first rule of news? If it bleeds, it leads. This is why it's not
Yes,
healthy for any of us to consume too much of it.
yeah, yeah. I like to watch everything because somewhere in the middle, it's the truth. The
I do
truth is out
too, but
there. It's just you have to find it. Yeah,
I
yeah,
do. I just have to limit it, and I do need a fast from information
yeah,
because it does my head in. Um,
yeah. I mean, I I look at news channels based on like, okay, I'm gonna like the news, whoever the producer of the show is, it says, okay, this is our audience. These are the people that they're tuning in, and these are the type of news items that we're going to deliver, because the more eyeballs on our shows, the more advertising dollars we get. So both
That's right.
sides will look at it exactly the same way, you know.
Yep. Provoke, get them to fight in the comments. So you spent, I read, a year and a half writing the book, and not because you wanted to cash in, but because you felt the story needed to be told correctly. What
Oh,
misinformation or myths were there that you were trying to clear up? What did people get wrong about that
yeah,
period,
yeah,
and all that?
yeah. Let put it this way: if I if for the hours that I spent writing the book, if I would have worked at a McDonald's, I would have made way more money than what the
Believe me, I
biggest
know.
you know yeah, the biggest gift about writing the book is that I got closure. I was able to tell the story, everything that I know, everything that anybody ever asked me and that wanted an answer to, it's in the book. And to be able to put that on, get it off my shoulders 20 years after the crash, uh, was really a blessing. I did not expect it, you know. So it's yeah, the I wrote it's actually it's in the back of the book. I explain that, and this is around the time I started writing the book, around the time of MySpace, not even Facebook, MySpace,
Right.
and I found so many uh, innuendos and conspiracy theories regarding the Osbournes, about the crash, and I said, you know what, this is so way off from from what really happened, that if it's not contested, if somebody doesn't come and say, no, that's not what happened, you know, like I could. I mean, there were only so many people that were able to do that, you know, and I wasn't going to wait for somebody else to write the book, because enough time had passed and nobody had. I figured, if I don't do it, this is it's all these conspiracy theories are never going to get discredited, because people will just feed on it and they will become worse and worse and worse. You just take a conspiracy theory and just like twist it and bend it, and before you know it, it's like it's too late to fix it, because it's so ingrained in the minds of everybody that this is what really happened. you know.
It's true.
So I
And,
said,
people,
yeah,
yeah, people have asked me, like, would you encourage me to write a book? And I said, listen, writing is like being an actor or a musician or a painter. The only reason you should do it is if you cannot help but do it. So do it for the right reason. Do it because you have something to say. Don't do it with a commercial intent. And with any luck,
yeah.
um,
But you know what?
we will have left our cave painting on our cave wall.
Yeah, I started writing the book basically 25 years ago. That's when I started writing it. Uh, Today, I would have gone on the podcast circuit and talk about it. To me, podcasts have taken over what spending a year and a half of writing a book. I can get right to the point, or do
Right.
multiple podcasts, and in each one of them, just outline anything that I need to explain.
And pick up some more fans along the way with any luck. Um,
Uh,
I would
yeah,
fill some readers, but
no, no, yeah, yeah. That's really interesting what you just said about picking up fans, because sometimes you would say something that is completely uh something that I would never think about. Uh, but so it's like, but it's an interesting perception, especially to know that somebody else has that perception, that I could actually pick up fans, and I'm looking at it like, why?
well,
It's like, okay, yeah, it's I'm 75, right?
Yeah.
I'm 75, and as far as rock and roll goes, I mean, me going up on stage and running around and I'm playing the same songs that I recorded now is going to be 40, 43 years ago. Uh, it's challenging because I am not the same player that I used to be 43 years ago, meaning I am more educated and I would have made different musical choices in my performance on the record. But you got to stick pretty much with what people are familiar with. you
Yeah,
know,
that is interesting. Yeah. But
you
I
know.
think
So
everyone's that way. Like I don't like looking at my earliest pictures, and a lot of legends were like, "Oh my god, I'm embarrassed of my first 3 records," when everyone loves them. So, it's sort of
yeah,
like when you blow a note at a concert and then you come off stage and you're like, "I can't believe I blew that moment." It's just like nobody
yeah,
heard it. Everyone was just in the
yeah,
moment.
yeah. But you
So,
heard it. You know,
yeah,
yeah,
you heard.
and then you have like the one single act of creation, meaning you make that record. If you have to make it again, you're recreating the record. You're not creating. It's done. It's like
That
somebody is born, and you cannot go. Oh, I've changed my mind. I want to be reborn. No, you can't do that. So anything
It's
after
true.
that is it's a
One time.
recreation, and we have two choices. You can spend the rest of your life recreating. It's which is exactly performing the same songs that you did the same way for decades, or you can reimagine, which is what I try to do without steering away too much from the original blueprint of what I recorded. But in some cases, my reimagining the song is way closer to what I actually wanted to play originally. And when you're in a process back in the day where you sat in a room with not only the band to record, but also with the producer who's going to have the ultimate opinion on the record on whatever your contribution is going to be, or an engineer who's going to have the ultimate uh, decision on what you're going to sound like on the record. You know, so now as a performer, I'm not re-recording these songs. I'm performing this, and there's so much freedom and so much satisfaction that sometimes let's say I learned something about music and how to reshape what I originally recorded, and I can actually apply it live, and I go, wow, I really like playing the song this way.
Yeah, it's
So that
great. I mean,
yeah,
I've seen the Stones play since the early '80s, and Keith plays "Jumpin' Jack Flash" different every single night, and I think that's great. You just express yourself how
as
you're
it should
feeling it in
be.
the moment.
Absolutely.
If you would, we need to wrap up soon, but I would love if you'd share, because we've talked about your career is so vast. I feel like it could be a multi-parter, but I'd love if you could share a few anecdotes of Ronnie James Dio and the Whitesnake era.
uh I mean, anecdotes of Whitesnake. I mean, it was a great time. We all, it was almost like while it lasted, the most perfect. There was no trauma, no drama. It was just five guys getting up on stage and just kicking ass every single night. Uh, eh, as far as Ronnie goes, it was a little bit of a different experience because just when I thought, yeah, I started playing with Ronnie in 2003, no, 2004. And right after he recorded Master of the Moon, I was touring with Ingve Malmsteen when I got the call to join Dio and to record Master of the Moon, but I was committed to finishing the tour with Ingve. So we worked it out that once I finished my commitment with Ingve, I joined the band, but the record was already made. And so I started playing, I started like Ronnie and I, we lived like 15 minutes away from each other. So I would go to his house every day. And he was a master musician. Not only did he grow up playing classical trumpet, but also he was a bass player. Very rare for me to be in a band with another bass player, especially at the level of Ronnie James Dio. A singer, he played guitar, he played keyboards. The only thing he did not play was drums. So Simon Wright was living with him at the time, and he would program
Okay.
drums, And every day I would, they say the days that I would show up, Ronnie would say, "Here, come on, let's go." So we would go down to his studio, and he would play me a new track of a new song that he just wrote. And some of those songs wind up on the Heaven and Hell, the band Heaven and Hell
Yeah.
first album. But they were intended actually songs for Magica 2 and 3 that was his goal to write 2 and 3. We only did one song called Electra that was intended for one of those two Magica records. And Ronnie was just so different. I mean, he reminded me a lot of Randy because of his musical integrity and also somebody that grew up with musical education as a trumpet player. And he could read, he studied harmony and all of that, composition. So he was really well rounded. He was an English major, so his lyrics were always very strong in the storytelling. And I learned so much from him. I had two main mentors. Frankie was a mentor to me as far as being part of the rhythm section,
Yeah.
and Randy was a mentor as far as musical integrity and everything in my musical career, in my life, and Ronnie too. So those were like my main people that I learned from. He was amazing. He was amazing. He would remember everybody's name. If you had never met him before, you went backstage after the show. Next time he saw you, he would remember. He would know people. He would ask you about your cousin and your uncle and everybody by name.
That's
The
so
first time he
cool.
did that, the first time he did that, I'm going like, oh no, there's got to be a trick to this. So every night he would stay behind. I mean, I will go to my bunk because it would be like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and he would still be out there socializing. You love to talk to people, and he would have just a one beer in his hand, and he would just it would it would he would never drink it. He would just hold it, and he would talk to people. I never saw him drunk ever, 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 and it was just amazing to watch him communicate and recollect the people that came backstage, who their whole background, their whole family. Talking about, you were mentioning about a being in a family environment, going to a Grateful Dead show. When we were touring in Europe, in Deal, it was just the same thing. Not in the large scale of the Grateful Dead, but there was, I mean, we will go to so many fans' homes and they will follow us on tour because, Europe, countries are pretty
Yeah,
close
it's small.
to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you could be within hours of all these different countries and the shows and cities. And we would have that. It was a family event. It was incredible. It really was.
That's
I,
so
I
cool.
really I miss him so much, Ronnie. Yeah.
Yeah, I just went to see the Cult a couple months ago at the Shrine Auditorium, and I went with kind of friends and family to the show. And we're backstage afterward. And there was a lot of like really old people there. And then I said to my friend, I
Hmm.
said, "Who are these people?" And they're like, "They've literally been following the Cult since Sonic Temple." And I think it's so great. The super fans that have a real relationship with the band.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's the music that connects us all. I mean, we do
Yeah.
have a relationship. Even
Yeah.
even if you don't realize it, there is a relationship once you put that thought through speakers on your radio and you hear it, and whatever you're experiencing at that moment, that song will have that meaning, you know, and it will connect you for the rest of your life with that moment.
Rudy Sarzo, what would you like your legacy to be? How would you like to be remembered?
Wow. That's such a, that's such a great question. Uh, remember as, I don't know. I think that's up to the individual because everybody has the free will to remember me any way they want. I have no preconceived notion of what other people's free wills happens to be.
Well,
I
after
think
this
that's,
interview, to me, I think you're a smart, thoughtful, wise musician who I've always admired.
oh, thank you, Scott. And we were talking about creativity, creation, God's greatest gift. Uh,
Yeah,
I have to reconsider as free will because free will is what gives you, it's the ultimate to make a decision to actually create or not. It's your free will. Everything in life, people, like when people ask me about Cuba and communism, I tell them, look, I don't expect anybody after I tell them my thoughts about communism to actually agree with me because they have not experienced it. See, it's so different when you actually live it than
of
rather
course.
something that you read about it on a book, in a book, or watch a
In the
story
abstract,
or
yeah,
on a movie. My thoughts on just about everything in life is all based in my own experience. And then again, because it is my own experience, I don't expect anybody else to feel the same way as I do about
of course. Okay, well, Rudy, tell the folks at home where to find you on social media, and one more time the title of the book.
it. Yes, it's off the rails. It's available on Amazon.com. And they can find me on, let's see, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, which is X, and what else? Oh, LinkedIn.
Okay, I'll be posting all the links on my channels
Thank
as
you, Scott.
well.
Thank you.
Rudy Sarzo, thanks so much. I'm glad we were able to finally pull it together and get you on. It was a
Thank you.
gem
I
of a
really
show.
appreciate it. Thank
Oh,
you.
me too.
Thank you. God bless you. God bless you.
The Bad Decisions podcast was produced by Brock Workman of Herdat Entertainment. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the show on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. My book, The Big Book of Bad Decisions, is available for purchase wherever books are sold. A special thanks to today's guest, Rudy Sarzo, for joining me. I'm your host, Scott Nathan. Thanks for listening.